Hello and welcome. Today we're going through Leetcode problem number 80, remove duplicates from sorted array number 2. This problem has a difficulty rating of medium and it's very similar to the easy problem we went over last week, remove duplicates from sorted array number 1. So if you haven't taken a look at that video, feel free to do that first, but otherwise, let's take a look at this problem and see the most optimal way to solve it. All right, so we are going to be looking at remove duplicates from sorted array number 2 here. This is a medium difficulty, and this problem is essentially the same as what we looked at last week, so I'm not going to go through the question here. Just know that we're going to want to do the same thing, except for we only want to allow 2 elements in each example. So looking at this example below here, we see there's 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, and 3. So 1 appears 3 times. We don't want this third 1. That's essentially all that this question is saying. Just keep what you have as the input. Do not create a new array and just remove this additional 1 each time you see it. We can do the same thing down below looking at the inputs for the example number 2. And we see that there's 2 additional 1s here. So 0, 0 is fine, 1, 1 is fine. We need to get rid of these 2 1s in the middle, and we need to replace those with the 2, the 3, and the 3 at the end. And whatever's left over at the very end doesn't really matter. So we're going to go ahead and start coding this out. Remembering from last week, pointers is the way that we want to do this. Okay, so for our pointers, we're going to start with a pointer called left. We're going to set left equal to 1, and then we're going to create a second pointer called count, and we're going to set count equal to 1. We do this because we don't really need the index 0 because we know that it's always going to be unique. So instead we can look at the first index and we can compare that first index to the value that appears before it, which would be the index 0 here. So let's go ahead and start coding up what it would be to do for that next element. And we're going to do our for loop, same as last week. We're going to say for I in range of the length of nums, but we're not just going to do the length of nums, we're going to say 1 comma the length of nums, because remember we don't need to look at the first element since we're already starting our pointers at that index 1, which would be equal to the second element. Now for our if statement, again similar to last time, if nums I is equal to the nums I minus 1, which would be the first element is equal to the previous element, then we will say count plus equals 1. Otherwise, we want to set count equal to the value of 1. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's going to say that if the second element is equal to the first element, then add a count of 1. If it's not equal to the first element, then we want to say that the count is only equal to 1. So essentially you're looking at the previous elements to see if there's 1 or more elements, and you're going to create a count pointer that every time there's the same element, it will add 1. And for the second half here, where it's count equals 1, we want to say that if, for example, this 3 here does not equal the value before it, then we're going to set the count equal to 1 and restart our counter for each unique element in this input integer array. So now for our final bit of code, we need to write something to handle whenever the count is less than 2, so we actually assign it, overwrite those elements. We'll say if count is less than or equal to 2, then nums left is equal to nums I. And then left plus equals 1, and then at the end we'll just return the value for left. So left is going to be the number of elements that are in this integer array because we will assign it each time the count is less than 2. So in this example, there's a lot of 1s in example number 2. So each time you go through the for loop, the first time it will assign the value of 1 to the left, and then it will add 1. The second time it goes through, it will add the value for the second one to the next element. And then again, the third time it goes through, now our count is higher than 3, or higher than 2, it's equal to 3. So we will no longer be doing this last portion of this if count less than or equal to 2, and we will just be adding 1 each time it goes through. So let's go ahead and run this, and let's take a look and make sure that it works first before we submit our code. And now whenever we see that it works, we can submit, and you can see here we beat 95.77%. Pretty good runtime. This is in place, so our space complexity is always going to be 1, and for our time complexity, this is big O of n because we only go through the elements one time. Thank you so much for watching. If there's anything you would like to see in the future, please leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to get to that. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.